vital for the survival of man and the environment he lives in. Singapore has most of the facilities which make life easy. At a touch of a switch, our clothes are washed, and with a turn of a tap, we get potable water. What seems like an inexhaustible supply of water is often taken for granted until the tap runs dry. And this did happen on the 23rd of April 1963. For 10 parched months until the 28th of February 1964, Singaporeans experienced the longest period of water rationing. Because of severe drought, water supply was cut off for 12 hours a day at a stretch. In 1963, both Singapore and South Johor recorded the lowest rainfall in 15 years. For Singapore, it meant a reduction of some 33 million gallons of water daily. The dry spell also affected Singapore's main source of water supply, the Tebrau River in Johor. Its supply was reduced from an average of 45 million to about 23 million gallons a day. Apart from the severe drought, there was a problem of increased water consumption.
The biggest problem was the fact that we had insufficient sources of raw water and a lack of adequate impounding capacity in our reservoirs. As a result, with the dry spell and the increased demand for water, we were drawing down our reservoirs so fast that eventually it was run almost dry. I mean, now if you look at the MacRitchie Reservoir here, you find it's a beautiful sight. Water right up to the top water level, trees all around, beautiful scenery. But you should see MacRitchie in 1963, when we had drawn the water level down to practically nothing. The whole surrounding area would look like a huge scar on the face of the earth. It was a really frightening sight. And that was because we just could not meet the demand from the public. And so we had to cut that down by rationing. And this demand was caused by various factors. Industrialization was one. We were embarking on a big industrialization program. Jurong Industrial Estate was coming up very quickly. Factories were being built, and a lot of factories need a lot of water for production of whatever they were producing. The increasing population in the country was another. Housing Board was building thousands and thousands of flats, and we had to provide direct water supply to each and every unit. So there was obviously a huge increase in demand.
At that time, Singapore had 3 impounding reservoirs, MacRitchie, Peirce and Seletar. They had a total capacity of 5,900 million gallons. About a month before water rationing was imposed, stocks in the 3 reservoirs fell from 87% to about 50%. The water level continued to slide to about 40% of the total capacity in May, even after water rationing was imposed. Singaporeans had to be reminded to exercise the greatest restraint in the use of water. They were asked to keep the washing of motor cars and the watering of gardens to a minimum. However, the situation did not improve. The months of May, June and July were the hottest and driest months, so water consumption increased. Water rationing was inevitable. To implement it, Singapore was divided into 7 zones. During the first 2 weeks of water rationing, water supply was cut off for 6 hours each day. But when the situation did not improve, water rationing was increased to 12 hours a day. This started in May 1963 and lasted till January the next year. But the implementation was not without its problems.
In order to effect rationing, or the cut-off water supply to these various zones, the only way was to shut off the controlling valves of mains, which would prevent water from flowing into those zones where supply was to be cut off. And we made use of our workers who went about shutting off valves all around the peripheral area of the zone. And this took time.
The implementation of water rationing caught many householders unprepared. Many bought all available containers at inflated prices to store water. The only people to benefit from the dry spell appeared to be dealers in plastic pails and tanks, but they too were not spared the inconvenience of water rationing.
The water rationing was, in fact, for very long hours. And each time it does inconvenience us very much because we got to get up either early in the morning to stock up the water or late at night to stock up the water. And the flows from the tap, as you know very well, is only a very small trickle from the tap, and we couldn't get much out of it. And we would not know that the water would be dirty or not as we stock up in this manner. And anyway, we have got no choice. We still got to use it.
Not only did the tap run dry in homes, but the long dry spell also affected the livelihood of thousands of farmers. Their wells and ponds, the chief sources of water supply, were drying up. This resulted in a drop of income for the farmers, but it was the consumers who had to bear the cost of buying vegetables at higher prices. Street hawkers were also affected by the cuts in their water supply. But unlike many of the residents, street hawkers relied heavily on a constant supply of water for cooking and washing. The health authorities were also keeping a stringent watch on hawkers to help maintain cleanliness and to prevent an outbreak of cholera. But for some hawkers, their difficulties were compensated by more business. Not all sectors of the economy were affected by the rationing. The major industries were exempted from the exercise. An inadequate supply of water would have affected production and even jobs. In addition, essential services like hospitals and hotels were also exempted. But the smaller hotels could not be spared.
We have to cater for accommodate so much food. Now, we have to go and buy those big urns and fill it up and keep them for our use through the day, and also for washing up all the dishes. And it is very important, to have enough water to keep the catering standards up. Then we also have in-house laundry, and we had those big steel drums, and we filled them up with water, and we had just wooden fires, and we boil and sterilize the laundry, and we had to wash them and dry them in the hotel premises.
Appeals were also made to the various government departments to cut down on the usage and wastage of water. In the case of the cleansing department, seawater was used in the cleansing and flushing of public drains. In January 1964, the rains came. This raised the water stocks to about 60% of maximum capacity. By the end of the month, the island-wide rationing of 12 hours a day was reduced to 3 days a week. A month later, on the 28th of February, water rationing was lifted when the reservoirs were 100% full once again. Our experience of water rationing led to a search for more water. From 3 reservoirs in 1963, an additional 11 reservoirs were added. Also, the supply from Johor was increased to meet the growing needs of Singapore's population. Since 1963, water consumption has also risen about 4 times to 197 million gallons per day. While water consumption has risen, all available sources of water have been tapped. Singapore can never be totally self-sufficient in water, and the possibility of water shortage and rationing cannot be ruled out. As a safeguard against the uncertainties of tomorrow, saving water should not be confined to dry weather alone. It must be part of our daily life.